Friends, I heard that when Siggy was very young, he announced to a family member that it was his determination to make a lot of money by the time he was 40 because he was determined to spend the rest of his life doing good for others. And my goodness me, if he saw that as a young man, it has kept him perennially young. At the young age of 90, Moses was just 10 years into his mission and had 30 good years ahead of him. And the Torah says of him that even at the age of 120, Lo nos lecho, lo chasayno. His eye was undimmed and his natural energy was unabated. I always thought of those two things as consecutive phrases until I realized that the former is the explanation for the latter. Why was his energy unabated? Because his eye was undimmed. He never lost the idealism of his youth. And Siggy, that is what has kept you so young over the years. You never lost the idealism of your youth or your faith in humanity. And that has been something absolutely extraordinary.
A few days ago, Siggy, I was talking to a great friend and admirer of yours, a gentleman called Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. And I mentioned your name, and the Duke said, Siggy, he must be getting on a bit. Bloody hell, I thought. You're only 8 days younger than him. But Philip was showing me a remarkable document. It was Queen Victoria's diary, handwritten, and open at the page where she recorded following government advice and bestowing a knighthood on Sir Moses Montefiore. I was asked to knight Sir Moses Montefiore, she wrote. He's Jewish, a remarkable man who does great good for the community and for this country, quite right too. There are considerable parallels between you, Sir Sigmund, and Sir Moses. Moses Montefiore was quite simply the Foreign Secretary of the British Jewish community, representing it for a very long period, both at home and abroad. And you've played exactly the same role, with vast energy and an irresistible determination to use your unbelievable energy and strength to reach out to others, leaders of businesses, leaders of the diplomatic world, and leaders of the faiths, particularly Christianity and Islam. You have been utterly determined to refute Hegel's most cynical statement that history teaches people nothing. And the second dimension, which is utterly yours and totally transcends Moses Montefiore, is your commitment to the reform movement. Montefiore was actually very opposed to Reform Judaism. You, Mr. Life President, have led the Reform movement to a position of enormous respect as part of the responsible mainstream of the British Jewish community. Your friend, the Duke of Edinburgh, turned to his wife, who recalled knighting you just as her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, had knighted Sir Moses Montefiore. And here I improvise just a little. Her Majesty, the Queen, repeated her immortal line, Manishtana halayla hazeh, mikol halaylot. Why is this night different from all other nights? To which we all respond, because he's Siggy, unique and wonderful. Happy birthday for next Thursday, and please God, by the next 30 years.
I read in the paper she went golfing, and she got a hole-in-one. And that made me think of today, because I don't think you've had any time to do any golfing in your life. But you seem to spend all your life getting holes in one. A second hole in one, you will remember very well indeed, when you started the Three-Faith Forum. I was initially very unhappy about that, because I didn't want CCJ to be harmed in any way. But I acknowledge publicly now how wrong I was. And seeing you and Marcus, and of course you remember Zaki Bedoui was one of your founders too, it's gone on from strength to strength, and indeed instead of harming CCJ, it's been a parallel movement. So we want to honour that hole-in-one. And then, after 9/11, you were the first to get on to Klaus Schwab and to cement those links with the World Economic Forum. Well, I could go on so many occasions where you have seen the initiative, you've seen the possibilities. And that's why, 90 years of age, we know that, as you put it so well, your natural force is certainly not abated. You are there ahead of us. And if I may say this, I do not recognise the Archbishop of Canterbury in this room at the moment. I do not see a bishop in this room at the moment. So may I say, on behalf of the Church of England and the Anglican communion throughout the world, we honour you tonight, Siggy. We bring you our greetings. Thank God for you, and may there be many holes in one in the years ahead. God bless you.
I recall that one of the commandments that was given to Moses was honour thy father and thy mother. And Ziggy has become for me my surrogate father, my role model, the person I most admire, the man whose energy, drive, enthusiasm, oh, you name the adjectives, and they're not nearly enough of them to praise Ziggy for what he has done and what he is. He has made a significant contribution to so many different areas of life. And I'm grateful that I've been allowed to be part of some of them. I have one last prayer. Methuselah lived to a certain age. May I be at Ziggy's party when he reaches that age?
When I first entered the House of Commons, and I thought that the actual election programme of my party would be sufficient for me not to have to answer any questions, just follow the programme. But I met Siggy quite early on with the late Lord Fisher, and Siggy said, that can be all very well, but I think you better have a look at this. And of course he produced the election programme that any candidate, any Jewish candidate ought to take account of. And I think that saw me through some very difficult times. And in fact, whenever I moved away from the Siggy programme, there was always a letter waiting the following morning. I was party to a study group in which the late Harold Wilson was there, and we were talking about the Jewish community. Harold, as many of you know, was very concerned and interested. And it came round to Siggy Sternberg, and in a way, everything that the Chief Rabbi has said applies to that remark. He said, well, he's good value, that's what it is. He's a good value putting away, because we don't need a committee with Siggy, we don't need a subcommittee, we don't need civil servants, he gets things done. And I think that's really the simple reference I give for somebody that, like others, I love very much indeed.
Without my father, the world would be a more horrid and a duller place. There would be a convent at Auschwitz, interfaith relations would be in their infancy, no pope would ever have visited a synagogue, the state of Israel would probably have remained unrecognized by the Vatican, the Manor House site in Finchley would be a hotel, and the British manufacturers of garlic pills would certainly have gone out of business. The Jewish Chronicle would have always been far less interesting. Without him, his family would have certainly led more peaceful, but certainly more boring lives. I owe this unique human being in his white suit my life, not only because I am his son, but because he emphatically prevented me from buying a Lotus 7 open-top sports car in 1970, despite the fact that he could reach 70 in 5 seconds, which to me seemed to be just about the most important thing in the world at the age of 18. As my father's mother, my late grandmother, was fond of saying, age is not important unless you are a cheese. This is certainly true of my father. He is one of the most remarkable human beings you are ever likely to have met. As one would expect, with someone who shares his birth date with the Rolling Stones drummer Charlie Watts, the Marquis de Sade, King Henry VIII, and Thomas Hardy. We all congratulate and celebrate with him this evening. Thank you very much.
But I do feel that, as on behalf of the board, I want to express a special thank you to you. I think I can say without fear of contradiction that in this current triennial now, I don't think there is another deputy who has done as much for the board as you have done. And that is extraordinary. I'm not talking about the past. I'm not talking about my predecessors. I'm talking about now, today, 2011, the enormous amount of work you do. And you phone me up and you come out with ideas which are fresh. And it is really, really impressive. My most vivid memory of this was when I was actually on a boat last Christmas in Eilat, and a particular crisis was erupting on the board. And I was watching my daughters doing parasailing behind the boat, and I was rather a long way away. And my BlackBerry rings, and it's Siggy on the phone, and he's giving me advice. And I put the phone down, and I said, that is really intelligent advice. Here is a man who has actually seen through the heart of what is rather a complex problem, and he's actually right. But that is quite apart from the genuine contributions that he's made, the actual, real, serious contributions he's made to the smooth running of the board and the success of the board just in the last 12 years. And I say nothing about my predecessors. I think I have to say a word also about the character of someone who has grown up in a deeply anti-Semitic country, who's escaped it before the horrors of the Holocaust, and has come over to this country, displayed enormous commercial acumen, has done very, very well in business, and then has set his energies not to sort of recording hatred or things like that, but to making peace and harmony with different groups across the wider community, not across the Jewish community, but across the wider community. And I do remember 5 years ago at your 85th birthday, when you were presented with an honour at the New North London, at the Sternberg Centre, New North London Synagogue, and your reference to your gratitude to God for this. And I'm impressed by the spirituality of that, which has carried you through and has now made you make such a contribution to good relations, not just between Jewish communities, but between Jewish communities and our sister communities in the Anglican Church, in the Catholic Church, and also among Islam. We wish you Mazel Tov, another 30 years. As the Chief Rabbi had said, B'tishim ben tishim lasuach, and congratulations from us all.
I'm very happy what I could do for the board, and the person who helped me very much was Lord Fisher. Because it was Lord Fisher who put me to the road of interfaith dialogue, because he told me, I remember, thinking, I've got a mitzvah for you. The Council of Christian and Jews are going to go bankrupt. You try to help them. And that's how I got involved. Because I didn't know very much about the Council of Christian and Jews beforehand. And it was the most exciting experience really because I witnessed. I'm very glad that I could help the board in many other ways. But anyway, I heard so many things about myself, so I've got to do better than that. I've got to do much better, and I cannot retire. And I've got to keep on working. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
What's your impression of tonight?
It's been a wonderful occasion. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. It's been great to see such a broad mix of people from right across the community, Jewish and non-Jewish, and absolutely fitting for Ziggy.
Very, very stimulating, very, very thrilling to see Siggy honoured on the occasion of his 90th birthday.
Excellent, wonderful. What wonderful tributes. It says it all.
I thought it was a wonderful evening and no more than Ziggy deserved. But I wonder whether I can just add my own personal tribute to him, because I think of him a little bit like a sort of a mystic guru in that people come and pay homage to him. I often visit him at his house in Highgate, and you go in there and someone is about to leave that has come to pay homage. You might remember the Lubavitch Rebbe. People used to go to him and he would bless them. I have the feeling that Ziggy people go to also to get a blessing, and believe me, it's a special feeling when he gives you that blessing. The last time I went, for example, I remember a few weeks ago, I was on my way in to see him, and on the way out were two young ladies from the Romany community, and they said, "We've come to ask if he can give us some ideas about doing a connection with Jews and Romanis because of our joint heritage." The next thing I knew, I got chatting to them through the shidduch that Ziggy had made, and I was a speaker last month at the Romani Holocaust Memorial Service in London, and it's all because of Ziggy. And I think that's an important link because we have a shared commonality, gypsies and Jews in many regards from the war, and we all respect each other's position. And that's what I think he's so great at. He's a facilitator. He brings people together. And Ziggy, that's what I thank you for doing, because you are a facilitator, and may you do it for many more years.
What a splendid evening. Tell us, what did you think about it?
Well, but I said before, it's not given to many people to listen to their obituary. That's how I felt about it. I enjoyed it very much, and I know I had many friends, and I've done my bit for the board, and I hope that young people will come and follow me, because it's no good for people, somebody of 90 to be a member of the board. Robert Perlman, my nephew, should really be the member.
We'll talk to Robert in a minute. I want to tell you, though, that somebody said to me a little while ago, when I was speaking to them, that if what they had heard tonight had been about a group of 4 men, they wouldn't have been surprised. But to hear that it's all from you is quite something. Hazel, what did you think of tonight?
I thought it was wonderful. I can't say anything more than that.
Well, you're both wonderful. And Suzanne?
It was really an excellent evening, and I think much more people could have spoken, but there is a limit to everything. But what we heard was really wonderful.
Well, when Siggy gave me the list of people to make speeches, I said that if we had them all speak, we'd be out of here by midnight.
Exactly. That's absolutely right. Well, so there is a limit to everything, a limit to every time.
There's only one thing missing from tonight, you know, and that's that nobody sang Happy Birthday to Siggy. So shall we do it right now?
Yes, of course.
1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Siggy. Happy birthday to you. Wonderful, thank you. Vivian Wineman, President of the Board of Deputies, compeer of this absolutely extraordinary evening. What did you think of it?
Well, it's a tribute to an extraordinary person, a person who grew up with a lot of hardship in his background, in the background of the war, the Holocaust, and yet he's risen above it. He's shown enormous commercial acumen. He's done very well for himself. And then he spent the second half of his life just spreading peace and harmony between different groups. That's a marvellous thing. I mean, you know, he hasn't devoted his energy to trying to remember grievances in the past or anything like that. He's devoted it to making harmony inside the community and outside the community, and I think that's just fantastic.
Flo Kaufmann, you're a woman of energy that almost matches Siggy. You're another mover and shaker.
He's my mentor, that's
He's your mentor. Tell us about that.
Well, what I'd like to tell you is how much the Board of Deputies owes to Ziggy. I'm speaking to you today from a building in number 6 Bloomsbury Square, which the Board of Deputies owns the freehold. And we were able to buy this building in 2001 when I was the board's treasurer. And nobody from the community would come forward and help the board pay for this building, except for Ziggy. And Ziggy gave us what amounted to the down payment to pay the mortgage. And without that, we wouldn't have been able to consider buying this building.
The building, number 6 Bloomsbury Square, is an interesting building because it was the family home of Isaac Disraeli, the father of Benjamin Disraeli. So when the board bought it with Ziggy's help, support and backing, and without that we couldn't have done it, it felt to us that this building was coming back into the Jewish community, even though Isaac Disraeli was responsible for the baptism of his children.
The board and the community really are indebted to Ziggy for this, amongst other things, and all the other work he does through Interfaith and through making us all aware of things we may not have been aware of.
And it's because of his support for the board that he was made patron of the board's charitable foundation. He's the only person ever to have been given that honour.
How do you see the future of the Board of Deputies, Laurence?
Well, we're trying to recover from our 250th anniversary, which I've had the honour of chairing this year, and I'm looking forward to another 250 years. And I think the way things are going, there's no reason, if we've lasted this long, we shouldn't last at least as long again. But we need people like Ziggy to come along, and I called him in a letter the other day one of the pillars on which the board is built, and I think he knows that. And I can't deny that his financial support has been very important to us as well, and not just to the board, but to many communities.
Reverend Marcus Braybrooke, welcome, and thank you very much for coming to talk to us on this auspicious occasion. You are the president of the World Faiths Congress and co-founder of the Three Faiths Forum.
That's right, yes.
What message do you have for Siggy on this great night of his tonight?
I think to thank him for his vision in seeing that the dialogue, important Christian-Jewish dialogue, also had to include Muslims and indeed people of other faiths, because he was a great friend of Dr. Singhvi, a distinguished Indian ambassador. And I think it's his gift of friendship, because in the end, a dialogue is about personal relationships, heart to heart, not just speeches and conferences. And I've always been aware of his kindness, and I think that's what's been so important.
I mean, because there's a genuine spirituality there, there's a genuine care, a genuine belief in what our Jewish tradition has for us. At the same time, an openness to the other religions, to the other faiths, where he's developed these wonderful relations. And this is so important in our society that it should be good interfaith relations, and he's the pioneer.
We're in a global community. I mean, Ziggy was one of the first to realize that the interdependence of the world is one of the most important facts determining our future existence. If people don't find a way of understanding each other across the faith, then the difficulties, the dangers, the risks, the divisions could become intolerable. To try to find a way of understanding each faith and its important elemental characteristics brings you to what you might call the golden rule, that each of us in our own religions, as my father found in his Christian religion, as Ziggy found in Judaism, as many, many people have found in the Hindu, Muslim, Sikh and Buddhist faith, it all comes back to a central idea of neighbourliness, that you have responsibilities to other people and not just rights of your own, that you should do to other people as you would have them do to you. And this is an essential element of every faith, and it's the essence, I think, of interfaith collaboration, that we find this common bond, this thread that binds us together. And of course it's the basis of building a global society where nations that hitherto were suspicious of each other and even fought wars against each other can find that there is common ground, because at the end of the day the citizens of one nation have got an interest, but also they've got a religious belief from the faiths of their fathers and mothers, a religious belief in the merits and the ethics of cooperation.
Sir Sigmund Sternberg, Siggy, you're a man of extraordinary achievements and many, many experiences. May I ask you, in retrospect, what's the most important one? What's the closest one to your heart? What's your greatest achievement?
The formation of the Three Faith Forum, which is a Christian, Jewish, Muslim dialogue, because when I was starting it, people told me that it will never work because there is no demand for it. And we have got a long, long time still to have Christian-Jewish relations. Why should we bring in the Muslims as well?
And how did you overcome that?
Overcoming by formed my own Three Faith Forum, and I left the vice presidency of the Council of Christian and Jews and formed with the late Zaki Badawi, who was one of the Muslim leaders, the Three Faith Forum. And that was 16 years ago, and it's taken off.
What does the Three Faiths Foundation actually do?
The forum is building up goodwill between Christian, Jews and Muslims and try to understand the mentality of the Muslims in this country and abroad. We work together. I mean, we are friends, but we are separate.
And where will the Three Faiths Forum go from here?
From strength to strength. You know, I guess the rabbis say we stand on the shoulders of the rabbis of the past, and for us, we stand on the shoulders of Sir Sigmund Sternberg and the other co-founders. But he keeps growing, and he keeps moving. So we keep going up, and as he progresses, we progress, and he's given us wings. So where we go, I have no idea. Well, I have some.
I'm sure you have lots.
Yeah. Well, we have good plans, and we have a good firm base. So we work in schools every day. We work. We're the biggest delivery of this kind of work in the country. So it's all testament to him.
He's done so much to bridge the gaps between the different faiths. And, you know, he never takes no for an answer. And I was very busy as president of the board with him at the time when the nuns were in the convent at Auschwitz. And, you know, he was persistent, and he wouldn't stop, and he wouldn't give up. And that's part of his great strength, part of his great strength. He
never gives up.
He never gives up, no, he doesn't give up at all. And, you know, he knows also how to get the best brains on his side. Siggy will tell you himself, he's not a great writer of letters or speeches, so he gets a good speechwriter. And he's not a great after-dinner speaker, so you get somebody to help him with speeches, you see. But that's a sign of knowing your own strengths, knowing your own limitations. But he manages through all this to achieve things, and that's what really matters, isn't it?
You've won an awful lot of awards in your life. I notice you're wearing a very interesting medal today. What is that exactly?
This medal was given to me after I formed Rotary clubs in the Soviet-occupied countries, where during the Soviet regime you could not have any Rotary clubs at all. And I went to Hungary and various other Eastern European countries, and I helped to form Rotary clubs, and that is a reward for me, which I'm extremely very proud of.
Tell us about the Rotary Club of London. It's got a rather unique membership, doesn't it?
I did introduce many members, many ambassadors who didn't do anything about Rotary at all, and I'm very proud that the award that has been so successful.
Siggy has been an absolute treasure to the Rotary Club of London. Since he's been there, he brings endless guests with him, and many of those become members, and he also brings speakers. He's an absolute treasure.
And he's filled up most of the club with many of the members. Most of the people, every time I hear somebody say so-and-so is a member of the Rotary Club of London, Siggy says he's the one who brought him there. Is that right?
I think that's absolutely right. Yes, if you look down the list of who inducted a particular member, Siggy's name will appear on many occasions.
Especially the ambassadors and other good and great people.
Absolutely, especially the ambassadors. He's brought so many ambassadors along that it's been absolutely amazing for the club.
Makes it quite a unique club, I think,
Well, the club's very unique, and we've got a very unique member in Siggy.
Well, I first see him at my parents-in-law's house, and they'd all be talking politics. They knew that I was not as far left as they were, and Siggy and I began to talk and to chat, And one day he discovered I was interested in education, and he was telling me all about the Sparrow Institute, all about Rotarians, all about all sorts of things. And I remember once, for my wife, Adrian, there was a meeting in connection with speech therapists. And he arranged for Harold Poster to make a very large contribution. And in the end, they set up a thing called Harold Poster House, which unfortunately now, in the effluxion of time, has now disappeared. Now, the interesting thing there was that I saw a friend of his also called Siggy, the surname I've just forgotten for the moment, but he was wearing a Rotarian's badge. And I made the big mistake of saying, "Oh, what is that Rotarian's badge?" He said, what do Rotarians do? And he whips out a piece of paper and said, "I will arrange now for you to come along and see." And when Siggy heard that, I was already hooked, and he made me a Rotarian. And that was the beginning of our relationship.
When did you first meet Siggy, and what were your first impressions?
I think it was in the early 1980s. I became a member of Parliament in 1983. There was quite a few of us who were young members of Parliament wanting to see how things could change and get better. Siggy, of course, had these huge international connections, but he had a commitment to a social responsibility in the way we ran the economy, and I think that's what became known to a lot of us. And I think that's how he'll be remembered, not just for his work on interfaith, but his work in championing the social responsibility of business and enterprise.
I must tell you how I first met him, because it's really funny. I met him at Gatwick Airport, and he was walking backwards up an escalator which was coming down. And that's always been to me a symbol of his ability to get things done.
Absolutely.
And to ignore every problem.
What are your most important memories of what he's given to you?
I think it's a very, very nice question, because I was fortunate to be sort of set up in business, in my previous business, by Siggy, or with the help of Siggy, or encouragement, with marvelous ideas, and he always advised me and gave me some of his ways, or taught me some of his ways of connecting with people, and made sure that I can enjoy myself, not just work and provide.
The memories that I have of him will remain with me for the rest of my life. He's a fantastic man. I think I was the first one to say, in respect of him, at one of the medal givings close to his 80th birthday, it seems a very long time ago now, that the traditional Jewish greeting for age was, "May you live to be 120. And of course, that raises the question, what do you say to a man on his 120th birthday? And the answer is, "Have a nice day." And I said that to Siggy, I think, in the Romanian embassy several years ago.
Siggy phones up people and he'll tell you, you know, this is a good idea, or that is a good idea, or you really should be doing such and such a thing, or you shouldn't be doing such and such a thing. And, you know, so he is very much the mentor, that's the word I used at the beginning of this interview. He is the mentor of the Jewish community, very much behind the scenes, lots of what Vicky does.
The mentor of the Jewish community, that's very good. That one should go on record, I think.
You see, a lot of the community don't know that the wheels of the community would not be going round and would not be greased and going as smoothly as they have been were it not for Siggy. And that doesn't only refer to financial matters, because he has it's he who's made relations between different sections of the community so much easier, and hopefully they'll continue to get easier. So we salute you today, Siggy, and wish you till 120, please God.
Siggy is the man who always nurtures me and carries me forward in the endeavours that I make throughout my life. So, Sir Sigmund Sternberg, I salute you.